Sometimes in spreadsheets, we start working with a whole lot of data, and it can be hard to keep track of where that data actually is, where all the cell ranges are, and all of that. So here we have an example where we have a dashboard worksheet. We have a raw data worksheet as well. So in order to keep our spreadsheet organized, we're going to put some calculations and some of our summary information on a separate worksheet rather than including it with the raw data. So spreadsheets get very large, either having a lot of columns or a lot of rows. This is a pretty common practice. So we want to create some named ranges for quantity sold, unit price, and total price columns from our raw data. That's what we're going to use to perform some calculations. So here we've got columns D, E, and F, and I want to use these quantity sold, unit price, and total price columns. So the number of transactions, like I could say equals count without using named ranges. Then I could come to raw data, and then I could count, shift and down. That's going to work. There's no problem with creating a formula this way. It's going to work just fine. So there's 1,000 transactions in that raw data worksheet. No problem with that formula. Except I have to remember, or I have to switch back and forth to create these formulas. So we'll see what named ranges can do for us. So instead, I can select all those cells again. I'll start from the bottom. I did N down. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to tap N, hit up. I'm going to hit, while still holding Shift, hit the down arrow key once. So that's selecting all of the data in my quantity sold. Now I'm going to come to formulas, and I can do a couple of different things. I can create a new name from selection. I can click define name, or I can come to the name manager and work with these names. If I click create from selection, we can see what happens. This pops up. Create names from values in the, the top row, the left column. Well, this is not exactly what I want. If I click top row, well, the top row is the first value. It's 193, so I don't want that, right? That's a little bit of a problem. What I want to do, my preferred way, is to select everything and then just click define name. That's just my go-to all the time. So select the data that you want to name, then click define name. Then you can give it your own name. So I'm going to call it quantity sold. Excel figured out that I have a header up there, so that was nice. And it's going to be available to the whole workbook. And I can see it's got the range of data that I don't have to type out manually or anything. That looks good. That range has all the data that I want with no headers. I'm going to click OK. Now if I pull up my name manager, I've got that quantity sold name, and I can see what it refers to. So I'm going to close that, Control Home, just to bring me up to the top left. That's where I feel more comfortable. And if I come to my dashboard now I can say equals count, and when I start typing QU, Excel tells me, okay, I found a name here called quantity sold. So I can use that. I can double click on it if I don't want to type it all out. So now when I create this formula here, I don't have to refer to another worksheet. I've already done that by defining that name. So I run this formula, and it gives me the same count that it did before, but my formula looks nicer, I would say. So let's do that again. I'm going to come to define unit price, so I'm going to hold Shift and down to select all that data. Click define name. It tells me unit price. I like that. You can change it to basically whatever you want. If I want to name it unit dash price or unit price, just like that with nothing there. I would avoid spaces just don't put spaces. Use underscores. I'm going to click OK. And let's see, total price. Shift and down, define name. Everything looks good. Click OK. So now when I come to my dashboard, so what's the average quantity? So I can use the average function, quantity sold. I hit tab and it's going to fill that in for me. Close that off. Looks good. Total quantity. So I can use the sum function, quantity sold. And again, these formulas are so easy to enter now because I don't have to mess around with selecting, you know, a whole bunch of data on a different worksheet. I can just stay here, do everything I want to do. So what's the average unit price? Equals average. So again, I don't have to say single quote raw data, single quote exclamation point. Try to remember which column I started. You know, I don't have to do any of that, right? Unit price, what was it? I start typing UN and I find unit price. So I can use the down arrow keys to select what the hints it's giving me. So I'm going to hit tab to have it type it in for me. That's good. So what's the average total price? So equals average. If I start writing TOT, it finds the total price name for me. Looks good. So hit tab, hit enter, fills it in. What's the sum? Equals sum of all my total prices. Finds total price. Hit tab, fills it in. Boom. So once I went through the work of defining my ranges, now on my dashboard here, I can quickly create these formulas and I don't have to remember cell references. I don't have to remember columns. I don't have to remember any of that stuff. And I'm going to get rid of this decimal point here because it's standing out. I don't think I need the decimal places when I'm dealing with $500,000. So that's how named ranges can be helpful. If I want to review them, I can come to Formulas, Name Manager, and I can see the ranges that I'm working with. If I need to correct something, I can correct these ranges here. My formulas will all be updated. And this is just one way to help you keep your spreadsheet organized and make entering your formulas easier.